Okay, I just want to start by saying thank you very much for sitting down and chatting with me. I suppose we should go all the way back, start right at the beginning. So, how did you get into theatre and writing?
Well, thank you. Very nice to be on here. Um, I Ever since I was very little, I've always wanted to be an actor, and I
Hmm.
don't really know where it's coming from because I grew up like in the middle of the Swedish forest, pretty much. So like none of my family had like
Hmm.
any roots in theatre or acting or film or anything
Yeah.
like that. Um, and I mean, no one around me really. But ever since, yes, from a very young age. So I don't know where it came from, but I've always, I guess, been very playful and had
Hmm.
a wild imagination. And I think also, I mean, encouraged by my parents to really like pursue whatever I wanted. Like I've always had the feeling that
Hmm.
whatever I wanted to do or to be was the thing that I was going to do,
Hmm.
which I guess is quite reassuring as a child. I mean, obviously, as you grow up, you realize it's not actually that easy eventually, but yeah, I think it's something I've always
Hmm.
wanted. Yeah.
So, how then from acting, how did you go into sort of writing and the creation of theatre? How did that transition work for you?
Writing's always been very scary to me, actually. And I've always wanted to write, and I've always written like bits here and there,
Yeah.
small things. But I always used to think of writers as these like amazing people. Obviously, many of them are.
Yeah.
But I've like that almost had like an understanding on a different level, and it wasn't until I actually started doing it a bit more, actually like
Hmm.
anyone can write, really. Um, and with, I mean, the show that I'm
Hmm.
now doing is actually the first full-length show I've written. And I think, I mean, it was about a topic that I feel very, very passionate about, which is, of course, the
Yes.
fantastic film Cats. Um, so somehow, I think that just made it easier. Um, and then I'm just so glad. I mean, because it was terrifying at first, obviously putting on something that I've written myself, but because the reactions were so positive, it's something I've really carried on with. So like I'll have a all being well, I've got a new show coming out in the autumn, and like I've kept on writing quite
Yeah.
a lot, and I really enjoy it.
Which is amazing. You touched on it a little bit there, but then moving on to 2019, the world was rocked by that Cats movie. So, can you remember what your sort of initial thoughts were, what your initial reactions were to probably one of the worst received films that I can remember?
I mean, it was funny because I actually didn't know anything about Cats before I went to see it, and I've seen on social media how everyone was going wild when the trailer was released and how they were criticizing how everything was looking. But I was a bit like, I don't think it looks that strange, but I was quite unbothered by it. And I only went to see it because my partner and my flatmate at the time, they really wanted to go and see it. So I went along with them. And it just blew my mind. Like I remember just like the opening and Jellicle songs for Jellicle Cats. And like I was like, I have no idea what's going on, but I love it. Like it's just visually so interesting. I love the music and it's just so weird. It feels like a long music video. It's kind of like how I
Yeah.
like almost like to describe it because like nothing quite makes sense, but it's very interesting and it's nice to look at. And I mean, yeah, it really like took over my entire world. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I just had to like read everything I could about Cats, read like look things up online, and listen to the soundtrack non-stop. And I went back to the cinema soon again. I just couldn't stop thinking about it.
So, what was it about the movie then that sort of inspired you to create How to Live a Jellicle Life?
Um, I think, I mean, I just became so like hyper fixated on the film
Hmm.
that nothing else really was going on in my mind. Like I'd started because I'd finished my previous show had toured up until like late 2019, so I
Hmm.
was sort of like looking at doing something new, and I'd started working on like a show I was hoping to put on. I was struggling a bit, and I realized when I was starting to work on that show that all the ideas I had for it now were like they're all Cats related. I'm like, that doesn't quite actually work. Um, but then I have a friend who's a director, and he was putting on a scratch night of new performances, where people were just trying things. And he asked me if I wanted to do something Cats related. And when he asked me, because I'd sort of thought a little bit before that, like maybe I could do a show about something like this, but then I thought, I mean, people didn't really respond well to the film. Like maybe no one but me will like it. But when he asked me, it was sort of like a door open. I was just like, okay, he's actually asking me to do this. Like, people want this. And I just, started making the show.
So what is your show about? What is How to Live a Jellicle Life?
It's always quite tricky to answer, actually, because I feel like it sounds so weird and so easy to make it sound boring or very niche. But it is basically, my partner tends to describe it as a TED Talk from hell, which is probably reasonably accurate. It's basically like an hour-long PowerPoint presentation, basically, but it's a PowerPoint presentation unlike any other you've seen. So we go through the different Jellicle cats in Cats. We talk about what makes them Jellicle and how you can apply that to your life. So it's a lot of, I mean, it's very stupid. It's very queer. There's loads of, games, and there's music, there's dance, there's some audience interaction. And I think it's just very silly and joyous, which is really nice. Like, I really want, because I created it throughout lockdown mostly, and I really wanted to make something that was when an audience got to experience something together and just have really fun together. So I was like, I just want something that's the opposite of everything that was going on in 2020, and I mean, still is going on to some level today.
So when you were approached to do a cats related sort of piece of theatre, how did you end up going down the TED Talk from hell route, or the sort of presentation style?
I mean, that's such a good question, because I've been thinking about it recently. Like, I don't actually quite remember why this was. I think why this was the version of the show sort of I chose, but I think I've given it a lot of thought about. I mean, because obviously Jellicle is never quite defined in Cats. So I just given it a lot of thought about what Jellicle is, and I really wanted to like understand the cats and like their society. So I think like I used Jellicle as the the word that I really wanted to understand, I guess. Although, I mean, you never can, because it is just a nonsense word, really.
It is. It's also quite, the show, from what I've seen, is quite unique in that it is a presentation based performance rather than the traditional style of theatre or musicals or so obviously it does stand out in this crowd of I can't even just put it into words, like that sort of classic style of theatre. So I see you're got an upcoming tour coming up where you're hitting a few places and showcasing what it is to be Jellicle. What's it been like preparing for touring?
Yes, I mean, we're doing a couple of shows before we take it to Edinburgh. So we're doing a couple of London shows. We're taking it to Oxford as well, and then sort of our longest stretch is 2 weeks in Edinburgh for the Fringe, which is nice. I mean, I wrote this show actually. I started creating it for the Fringe 2020 and had it programmed for 2020. Obviously, that never happened. So it's sort of nice to finally now, 2 years later, go full circle and bring it home, because I do feel like it's a very Fringe show. And I think it has the potential to do well at the Fringe. And it's really nice actually for it to have had quite a long life already. Like, I've toured quite a lot of places with it, and it's nice to take it to the Fringe where it's already at a level where, like, I'm very happy and confident with the show. So I feel like really ready for it, I think. The tough thing is, like, I'm trying to make some changes and to make some cuts to it to make sure it fits to the time slot I have at the Fringe. And that's really hard, because I've sort of like crafted it over 2 years, and everything that's in there now I feel like is really in there for a reason. So it's so hard now to try and like pick things out from it.
So obviously, with it being sort of a presentation, and obviously having sort of that iconic cat costume that I think we've all fallen in love with, has it been easy to transport them from venue to venues due to the way that it's structured? The show itself, I mean.
Yeah, it has been quite easy. I deliberately wanted to make a show because in lockdown I was like, I don't know when or if I'll get to perform again, and like, I just wanted to have a show that would be as easy as possible to do as well. So it's basically, as you say, just me and the cat sit, and a projector and screen. It's basically like all that's required. Hopefully there'll be some more things around it, but like we can work on like, we have done it in some venues that have been like very basic setup, so it does work then as well. So it is quite easy to travel with, which is nice, and especially for the fringe as well. Like it will give us an easy get in and get out, which makes, I think, difference when you have to do it.
Makes it a lot easier, and sort of you can focus then on the sort of performance elements rather than getting tied up with how to get this here and the logistics of the show. So
exactly.
So obviously you created the story and you built it and performing it. What's it been like to be on both the creative and the performance side of a show?
I mean, story is a very generous word for it, but thank you. I've loved it actually. I think it's different when you like. If I am just an actor in a project, you come in and you sort of like take the script almost as gospel. Like you look at it and you make it your own and you make it work. Like you don't question it. Whereas like when it's my own script, I'll constantly be like, oh, actually, I can cut that bit, or I can change that bit, or I'll throw that in there. Like it feels like the show's never ready. Like we toured it quite a lot earlier this year. We went to 21 places, and even up until like before the final show, I was still like making tiny like adjustments to it. So I feel like it's different in that way, which I think is both its strength, but sometimes obviously that can be tricky as well, because you feel like you're never quite ready with it. But then it does feel like it's always alive and it's still fun for me to perform it, which is key, I think.
Yeah, I suppose you're always sort of self-reflecting and thinking not only how can you do it better, but how could it be better as a show. So we've talked about the tours and shows coming up. So where can people find you, stay up to date with the show, and possibly get tickets?
Oh yes, so the best way is probably our social media. So we have @awkwardprod, so short for Awkward Productions. If you head to Twitter, Instagram, you can find all the details about the show there. I'm @Linus Karp, just my name, on social media as well. And I'm sure I'll have the links in my bios too. So we're doing shows in London, Oxford, and then of course Edinburgh Fringe for the final 2 weeks. And it's also going to be available online throughout the run of the Fringe. So you can watch it from wherever in the world you are.
Oh, fantastic. So final couple of questions. So what sort of advice do you have for young people who are trying to get into the theatre industry or through writing? Is there any advice or any wisdom that you could part with?
I feel like since I started, I guess, writing and self-producing my own work, it's just been, I guess I've been constantly busy, and it's been a lot more, like the sense of achievement is much greater. I feel it's been really joyful, and it feels like your fate isn't just in other people's hands, because I feel like for so long I was just, hoping that I'd be seen for the right things, or that they'd like me in auditions, or you think of these producers and writers and casting directors almost as these like people above you, but actually when you start doing it yourself, you realize that it is doable. So I think that's worth remembering, and you can just do things like obviously money is always tricky, but like there are ways of doing things quite cheap, and just putting things on is often better than waiting for things to happen.
Yeah, just sort of having a go and seeing what you can do and what you can come up with. And I think obviously the lockdowns that we went through really encouraged people to kind of be more conscious about what they can do and having a go and trying things. Obviously, loads of people started baking during lockdown and writing pub quizzes, and I know a few people who have tried to make musicals during lockdown, which was obviously incredibly difficult, but just having a go and having fun, I suppose, is really key for new people. So finally, how would you describe your show in 3 words?
Ooh. Jellicle, of course.
Of course.
Queer and stupid.
Just like you just talked about, just having it's fun. And obviously right now with everything that's going on, obviously something that's just enjoyable and fun is obviously really welcomed and accepted.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that was really the key. I just wanted to have fun especially create something that was very queer, but still very fun and joyful. Because I feel like so often queer stories in particular are often tragedies, and there's obviously reasons for that, because there's been a lot of homophobia, transphobia, etc. But I feel like it's also important to showcase the queer joy of it as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like, especially when I feel like I've really changed since COVID, just in terms of what I want to see. I feel like before I'd happily go and watch loads of dramas and tragedies and things, but now the main thing for me now is actually I just want to be entertained and have fun. So that's the kind of work I want to create for myself as well.
Yeah, I think obviously being a reviewer myself, I find myself getting so caught up in that. Well, this needs to look perfect. That needs to do well. This needs to work in a certain way. But sometimes it's just a case of just enjoying something for the fun of it, rather than being hypercritical and looking into everything.
Exactly, and I feel like that's what Cats the film is. Like, it's just super enjoyable. Like, there's a lot of questionable things in there, but I feel like if you allow yourself to have a great time and just watch it, there's nothing like it, and you will really enjoy it.
So that's all the questions I have. So I want to say again, like I said at the beginning, thank you so much for taking the time out to sit and chat with me. I will be putting the links to the social media and where people can get tickets in the description of the video, so people can scroll down and click away. But yes, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me, and good luck for your tour.
Well, thank you so much, Rhys. This has been wonderful. Very jellicle of you.
Thank you very much. Speak to you soon.
Thank you.